Hello and welcome to the SportsGrad podcast, your bite-sized guide to enter the sports industry. With me, as always, is the united Ruben Williams. How are you, mate?
G'day, Ryan. I'm fantastic. Thank you. It's a pleasure, as always, to be talking to you across the desk. I am a temporary United converted A-League fan, I reckon.
Wow.
I walked into the A-League grand final last week, a Melbourne City supporter. But then after watching our friend Nathan Perrone go about his business and chatting to him today, I'm leaning towards United for now.
Yeah.
For now, my dad, I hope, isn't listening to this because he's a massive Melbourne City fan. But Nathan and his journeys really got me swaying.
Yeah, up the United folk. I'm a Perth Glory man myself, and well, we couldn't be further from the grand final. But you're right. I do like the green and black. I think it's a very cool operation over there, and a great team as well, which is highly exciting for our guest today, Nathan. So
Yep.
And a big episode coming up as well.
Massive episode.
To digest the grand final, but also his journey to get there. So
Yeah, our longest standing SportsGrad community member, which is just phenomenal.
Yeah.
So
and joining the elite club of 2 episodes as
Yes.
well. And your select few who have been given that honour.
yeah.
Anyway, we will crack into the show. My name's Ryan Walker. He's Ruben Williams. We are 2 mates who met at Cricket Australia, and now we help people find their own dream job through this very podcast and our online community. If you want to follow us, head over to LinkedIn, or even better, if you want to reconnect with us and hundreds of others working in sport, jump into the SportsGrad community.
Yes, and speaking of the SportsGrad community, a quick shout out to all of our beloved community members, one of which is coming in today on the podcast, but a special shout out to Daniel Keane, who's just landed a job as a member operations coordinator at the Hawthorn Football Club. I couldn't think of a better place to work, Ryan, so well done to Daniel on landing that job with an outstanding organisation, might I say. So if you are like Daniel and you want a foot in the door of the sports industry at the best club of the last 50 years, or you're like the Hawthorn Football Club and you want to save a lot of time and a lot of money hiring outstanding people like Daniel, then jump into the SportsGrad community. There's so much there for everybody. Even if you're just like us and you just want to network with people across the industry, and you'll hear from Nath today that's what he's there to do over the next 10 years. But there's seriously some incredible people from Cricket Australia, Netball Australia, the AFL, Tennis Australia, all the AFL clubs, A-League clubs as well. It does not get any better than inside the community. So head to the link in our show notes to join. It's going off, Ryan.
Absolutely is, mate. It's pumping, as they say. Ruse, we can't start any episode without some love for our good friends at Deakin. Deakin has been a huge supporter of the SportsGrad podcast since day dot. And our guest today is a great member of the Deakin alumni. I was suddenly surrounded by Deakin alumni in today's episode, so it was fantastic. I would have loved to go to Deakin if I had the chance back in the day. But if you are currently studying or you've just finished studying, having a postgrad qualification in sports management on your resume can give you a huge leg up over other potential candidates applying for the same role. So if you want to pump up your resume and get specialised knowledge in pretty much every area of sport that you could think of, check out Deakin's postgrad qualifications. They're Master of Business in Sports Management, as we've seen by none other than the man in front of me right now, is not one of, but the best one in Australia, ranked at number 1. So I'd be getting in there pretty quick. Add a postgrad to your resume, and that is our bit of Deakin love for the episode.
And a bit more Deakin love, as you mentioned. Nathan Perrone is our guest today, who studied a sport management degree at Deakin University, as all good people do, myself included. But a little bit more about Nath before we get him onto the show. So Nath came out of this Deakin degree with a sport management qualification. He's done some experience early on at his local gym, which taught him some very early sales and sponsorship experience. He then went on to the Box Hill Hawks, did an internship with them, where he started to pick up some event experience and add to his sponsorship experience as well. And then after a while, he then saw an opportunity at the AFL. He jumped into that. He spent 8 months at the AFL in a customer service role, helping clubs and leagues around the country run their different events and games. And then finally, he's made it to the Western United Football Club in a sponsorship coordinator role, which has been his dream since day dot. I don't know about you, Ryan, but ever since I met Nath, it's always been about football or soccer and sponsorship for Nathan. And he's finally made it, and he's won a premiership in his very first 3 months in the job. So a lot to unpack in this episode. But firstly, I think what people have got to look for is what it's like working for the A-League Premiers. You know, if you're working for a club who's winning the biggest day in A-League for the season, you know, what are you doing before the game? What are you doing during the game? Where are you after the game? If your team's winning, this is like an experience that not many people get to have in their entire lives. And Nathan's experienced in the first 3 months of his job.
Yeah.
So I can't wait to hear about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I just love just hearing about his journey, what he's gone through, where he's come from, and even some of the, the blockers that have come in his way about where he wants to get to. And he's just a great example of someone who's worked hard to get where he is right now. He's done all the right things on the way. He's met all the right people. He's really built his capability, and now he's reaping those rewards. So just hearing the journey is probably the highlight for me.
He makes it look easy, but it's not easy for everybody.
No.
You really have to work hard, and he's certainly done that.
Yeah.
Finally, I think one of the really nice things that came out of Nathan's interview is just hearing from Nathan's voice how fulfilling a job in sport really is, particularly in his situation where he's put in 5 years of hard work after leaving school and not really sure about what to do to now achieving his goal and then ending up with the Premiers. You can just hear it in his voice how passionate he is about it, how aligned he is with Western United and where they're going, and how much he loves it and is loving work at the moment. So I think that's a really lovely thing to look forward to with Nathan.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great episode, great listen for anyone who loves a good story and hearing about someone's journey. So grab a pen, enjoy this chat with Nathan Perrone. Nathan Perrone, welcome back to the SportsGrad podcast.
Thanks, gents. It's nice to be back and nice to be in the studio. It's good to be amongst an in real life podcast, I suppose you could say. I didn't think I'd be back on. Some people I've spoken to, I'll give Clayton Henderson a shout out, said, didn't you think it was a guarantee that when you won on the weekend, you'd be back? And I said, look, I don't know. I was on the podcast 13, 14 months ago. But look, it's good to be back. And for me, it'll be nice to just chat about my journey and I suppose the weekend as well, which I've already done with a few people. So
yeah, well, you're an elite company now of people who have graced the podcast on 2 or more occasions. I think. Yeah, there's Aman Alawalia who, when we first had him on, he was a Super Bowl winning sponsorship manager with the Kansas City Chiefs. And there's Michael Wolford who also went to the Super Bowl with the Cincinnati Bengals, didn't win. You've now been on a second time. You've gone to the A-League Grand Final and won. So there's a high category of performers that we get back.
There's a commercial theme there.
It's a big commercial theme too.
There's a flavour about it. I'm not sure what that is. Bit of luck on the SportsGrad podcast.
We had a bit of Ryan bias, I reckon.
Yeah, well, you got to have a bit of that, don't you?
But tell us about the weekend, because you've been in this job for only 3 months and football has been the biggest thing in your life. It's the only thing you've ever talked to us about. Every time Ryan comes up to me and I say, how's Nathan? He goes, he won't stop talking about football and sponsorship. You've made it into a football and sponsorship role with Western United. They've won the A-League Grand Final over the weekend and you were on the ground celebrating with the fans afterwards and have been part of the victory laps going around Melbourne ever since. So tell us a bit about the night and how it's been since.
Yeah, so I think before we get going, I'll say, because you said it as well, football, as what I'll refer to and you guys will refer to, is soccer.
Yeah, good to clarify
just
that
to
one.
be consistent and to clarify. So I'm now in a football club that I make sure I say football. So, but yeah, in terms of the night, it was, look, I'll be honest, I didn't think we'd be there at all. I know Aloisi and the boys have said for weeks and throughout the whole year that no one believed in us. One of the big stats I saw was, I think it was after the semi-final win against the Victory in the second leg, there was a graphic of the A-League, the pundits and what they'd said for the semi-finals, and it was just victory, 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 victory. There was no Western at all. Yeah. And look, every right to back a club that's been around for years and we're in hot form. They hadn't lost for 16 games. We obviously got through and we'd beat Wellington Phoenix the week before, and just for context, leading in, we had the league title in our hands with 3 games to go. 3 wins, we win. We were away for 3 games in 7 days. We looked awful. We lost every game. And I think all of us thought going into finals we would almost get knocked out straight away. So we came in probably with the worst form of the whole 6. And obviously, we got to the grand final. And I think at that point, I had more confidence to beat City than I did beating Victory, purely because Victory were in such great form. City had come back from an Asian Champions League campaign where they played 6 games in maybe 3 weeks in Asia and all based out of Thailand. So they weren't really the same team. They struggled through Adelaide. And I was in good spirits going to the City game. So from a work perspective, it was a wild run through the finals, especially that Victory one. We went from Wellington Phoenix on a Saturday night into home leg against Victory on Tuesday night. So we had 72 hours to turn everything around. Funny story, we finished at the Wellington game. I then went home to watch the Premier League at, I think it was 1:30 or 3 o'clock or something like that. I think it was a big game. I can't remember what it was.
Is this the final round of the Premier League?
I think it was 2 weeks before. Anyway, that game finished at 5, and I was like, shit, I still need to do some emails to sort out our corporate hospo for the game in 2 days' time. So I was doing emails still at like 5:30 in the morning, trying to sort out our entitlements for our partners, and we had 72 hours to turn it around. So that happened, and then we had the Saturday game again, which was 5 days later. There was less to do for us because it was an away game. But again, there was a lot of work around hospitality and suites and the like. And then the week of the grand final, we had a week, which was a long time for us.
That's good.
But amongst all of it, I was also getting my hands dirty with tickets. Every final, I was helping our ticketing team and a few of our admin staff to just basically redeem and send out comps for partners, for staff, for friends of the board, and etc. And so, despite I'm in a commercial role, and we speak about this a lot, you got to get your hands dirty, and sometimes you got to just do the nitty gritty. And for me, I didn't think twice. I knew the long-term benefit of seeing, Amy Park packed and full of Western United fans and the actives. But I also knew that it's just putting my foot forward in a positive light, that I'm here to do the hard yards. I'm not here just to do my role and say, get stuffed. And so the night of the grand final was, it was so exciting. I was there at 3 o'clock, I think. I didn't have to be there till probably 4 to do some setup for our active area. We had some T-shirts, which we put over all the seats in the actives. And I just soaked the atmosphere up before it all got very busy. And personally, I was predominantly in the commercial team and obviously working the chairman's club. So I did a bit of man management in terms of getting people in, but we also needed help with giving out giveaways for our fans, and that's where I saw you, Rubes, on the night. And it was just great to be around the West United crew, and just little things about getting amongst the atmosphere, giving out little clappers, giving out little T-shirts, and you made kids' days or you made families' days. And I sort of stood at one point, I think, before I caught up with you, and they'd started doing the entertainment. And I was like, wow, this is just unreal. I'm behind the goals, and this is all happening. And post that, so I went back and watched from the chairman's club, and for everyone that doesn't know, we scored in the second minute, and I couldn't believe it. It was almost fate that we were on the right track and we're going to do it. We scored again in the 30th, which was originally offside, and VAR pulled it back, which was pretty unheard of in football nowadays.
Best mates VAR.
I know.
Usually the worst thing about it, right?
Yeah, and then everyone hates VAR, so that was nice. And at that point, we all started to think this could actually happen. Obviously we ended up winning, and 5 minutes before the game, I think, ended, all of our staff all went down behind the goals, and we're all lapping it up, and lucky no one actually got kicked with the ball. You wouldn't see that anywhere in AFL or Premier League or something. Nah. The staff just behind a goal.
Yeah. Whose idea was that?
I think it was just the exec, to be honest. So CEO, chairman, we're all going down. Yeah. And I actually found out from Jess in our events team that the max we could have, and this was after the game and after everyone was on the pitch, the max we could have is 60 people on the pitch, and I reckon there was 600. Yeah. It was just every family member, every friend of a friend, and staff, and everyone was just on the ground. I mean, it was awesome because everyone could share in the moment. It's obviously very rare, and to be a startup and in our third year to win the championship. And then obviously the celebrations kicked on. We got lucky to join in downstairs, sing a song, and got a few photos with the toilet seat. And look, as a whole, it was just a a dream come true, and I'm sure we can speak to this a bit later, but I took some time and, again, probably before the final whistle blew when I got down to the ground and just started to soak it all in. And I probably don't have the same feeling some other staff do because they've been there from the start. But for me to be a football man and to be involved in a club like this and get my hands dirty and really feel part of the team within the 3 months, it just took me back to being a kid and wanting to be a player on the pitch and winning a championship. So I know I'm not a player, but you're still very, very much a part of it. And the club makes you feel a part of it as well.
Closest thing too, though, if you're on the field.
Well, everyone's got their own story to tell when a grand final is won. And so for some of those staff, they might have been there from day dot and set the strategy and recruited the players, done all those sort of things. But for you, your story kind of dates back to, when you started a sport management degree and when you dreamed of working in this sponsorship role in football. And so for you personally, it's still a massive thing to kind of experience. So I love times like these when, premierships are won and all these different stories start to come out about what it took different people to get there. And every one of them is unique and special in their own way. And so it's really cool to kind of be a part and see your journey the whole way through.
Yeah, you're right. For me, I always think back to year 12 or even the back end of year 11. I didn't really know exactly what I was after. I always thought about player agency, and that's all I think a lot of people think of when they think sport management. It's like, I'll be an agent. That's the best way I can get close to the players. Yeah. I looked at a few courses, and I was just set on a sport management course, and I knew Deakin was the go-to. So going into year 12, I had my ATAR I needed to get. I had the course I wanted to do, and I just worked my ass off to get it. I didn't know where it was going to take me, but I wanted to give myself a red-hot crack, and I did. And, that was the best thing, I suppose, that ever happened to me, to get through to Deakin. And there's so many stories of how I've got to this point today through networking, and whether that's Naomi McLean, who I met in my seminar in my second semester, who I ended up interviewing on a podcast, who then mentioned Andrew Perrone, who's now my boss. Yeah. I then interviewed him on the podcast. 6 months later, I rang him, and he's now my boss. And then there's like Mitch Seebeck, for example, to thank. I met him on an India study tour. I then got asked to be on the podcast with him, and all these interviews take place. So, look, there's a multitude of volunteer roles and internships and other things that I've gone through. Lots of hard conversations you have to have with family or friends, predominantly friends, that it's like, why aren't you coming out, or why are you just doing this to not get paid? And I spoke a bit about this last time I was on the podcast, and I suppose now it's all, you could say, starting to pay off. And I said in my LinkedIn post yesterday, it's all worth it. I know success puts a cherry on top, and it has been worth it for probably a little bit. But I just think how many more times I could possibly have that same feeling as Saturday night for the next 40 years or whatever it might be.
Yeah. It's a good point. Like, you've climbed this massive mountain and deserve to be feeling incredibly good about what you've achieved. But now you're in. It's like, what can you do with it? That next sort of project or the next sort of Everest for you to climb might be something more closely aligned to the special feelings that some of the exec might have, where they've started a new club and built something from scratch. These different projects might live in different sort of forms anywhere in the world. But now that you're in, you've got the opportunity to kind of pick and choose which ones you go after, which is a really cool thing to think about.
Take us back to the first 3 months, and for those listening, share a little bit about what your role is at Western United, and then what it's been like coming into a role 3 months in. What's that process like? How's it been getting used to everything and settling in? Because it has been a bit of a wild ride, 3 months, and then you've won a premiership.
Yeah, so I was hired as a commercial partnerships coordinator, which basically, for those who don't know, it's not a very salesy role within the commercial team. It's very much an account management, client satisfaction. They're kind of your main KPIs. From a club that's 3 years old, you can imagine we're pretty understaffed and under-resourced. So if you compare us to an AFL club like a Collingwood, which I often do, if I was in a role at Collingwood doing the same thing, I'd be very much penciled into, this is your role. Don't speak to the CEO. Don't speak to the board. You have to work through X, Y, Z to get to that person. Whereas for myself here, because there's less boundaries, there's an easy conversation for me to have with our CEO, with our chairman, There's not many people within the club who I'm unable to speak to. So within the role day to day, though, it can really vary, and you often hear that in sport. So I guess I'm starting to see that. Things that I've learned through like LED, virtual advertising, corporate hospitality, functions, suites, helping around on game day with giveaways, as I mentioned before, doing matrices, putting in contracts, etc. The main thing as a whole is probably just ticking boxes off a contract. So, for example, Simmons is our major. If they have X LED, X chairman's entitlements, if they have other signage, they can come. 10 people can come to the awards night we had yesterday.
Are they on the jacket you're wearing?
They're not on the jacket.
Didn't get a spot.
No, it wasn't on the checklist.
Nah, it's just Capra on this one.
They'd be flat at that.
Yeah, maybe something for next year.
Maybe. They're on basically everywhere else. They'll have polos, they'll have jerseys. But yeah, so you have all these tick boxes, and for me, I'm not like these are your accounts, which some clubs and some people in my role will do. It's more you have to help across the whole thing to really get involved and just help us out. The other main thing, I suppose, is proposals. So if we're approaching a new sponsor, perhaps, it's like, here's our options. So I'll help to draft that up with some of our team. So, look, it can really vary, and I've learned so much in the 3 months I've had now. I said to my boss recently that I knew I didn't have a lot of experience coming in. I knew it was a bit of a take a chance if I could get a chance. I'd come in with sort of 2.5 years of volunteering at South East Phoenix in corporate on a game day.
2.5 years you were volunteering?
Well, yeah, there or thereabouts. 2.5 seasons, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'd probably...
Yeah. That's phenomenal.
I'd probably make 60% of the games. And again, I just loved that, and it probably gave me an idea that I want to be in this space. And the other one was Box Hill, which I did for about 5 to 6 months last year. That was just as I probably came on the podcast as well last year. So those experiences both taught me a lot. I did a lot of research myself to get into the space I am, I suppose, as well. And for this role specifically, football knowledge was a big plus. Knowing how beneficial the stadium can be for us at Western United, and even just knowing about the World Cup next year, things like that, which some others might not know. So,
got to ask you about the stadium at one point in this podcast.
Yeah, we can get to that.
Our friend Simon Hill had a few words about that, so we might come back to it.
I did hear that. But look, as a whole, I'm loving the job. I know I took a lot of inspiration, I suppose, from what you did, Ryan, at CA, and we had a few conversations, and I've had a few conversations with multiple people in commercial, and I guess I never really knew if I was going to love it until I really got my hands dirty within it. So I had ideas of ops and events, and I think I've definitely found my foot in the right space, and look, onwards and upwards from here.
Was that a stressful thing to think about, whether your career direction was right for you or not before you'd even tested it?
A little bit, to be honest, because you don't want to make the wrong call and then get stuck. So when I had those three of commercial ops and events, I applied at basically all of them before I got this job. I didn't do a lot of ops because I didn't really have that experience whatsoever, so I sort of found that hard to do, whereas that work with Box Hill and South East Phoenix is both commercial events. So I had done a few applications there. But to be honest, I think commercial was always number one, and I know I spoke to you guys, and that was always at the forefront of my mind. So for me, why I love it is just to build relationships with other people. I like meeting new people. It's the same reason I enjoyed doing the podcast that I did with the Sports Bubble. I know that's now done, but I love just being able to meet new people and learn from them. It's the same as being in the community with you guys, and I had a conversation with Clayton literally an hour ago. We just caught up, and
one of the great members.
Yeah, the 8-foot giant, the big fella.
I didn't realise how big he was. I came in and I'm like, geez, you're tall.
Yeah, that's what I thought the same thing. I saw him at a meetup once and I was like, whoa, you're tall. And no wonder he's a good cricketer. He must be a fast bowler.
Yeah, he must
be. He is. He's quick. But it's one of the things about seeing all the community members online is it surprise you when you get some face-to-face time.
Yeah.
Some of them are 8 foot, others are not.
Yeah, I'm not that tall, so you can see that in the video here.
I love how we go off on those random tangents on the podcast.
Yeah.
We just suddenly talk about Clayton.
Clayton will enjoy this.
But back on that quickly, though, I remember every time we spoke, you you always used to refer to your goal, which is to go and work in the UK in commercial. Like you always had that goal you kept coming back to. And I think that was so pivotal, having that in your head before you went for this role, because it gave you that guidance to say, like, well, what's going to get me to that end spot and what's the quickest way I'm going to get there. And that led you to this. So I think it just highlights the importance of having the goal. I think we spoke about it in the last episode, just trying to figure out what that goal is and continuously going back to what is the one thing that I can do to get to that goal and what's the quickest way I can get there. And I think it's a good example right there.
Yeah, you're right. It was always at the back end of my mind, and I didn't push myself that I need to get A-League or it's bust.
Yeah.
It sort of worked out that it is what it is, and some people that know me know I'm travelling an hour and a half almost to get to work on the office days, and it's not like it's a around the corner job.
Yeah.
So there is that bit of extra sacrifice for me to do what I want to do, and that was something I considered when I took the job. I looked at it for a whole week and said, too far, I'm not doing it. And then with 4 hours left on the deadline, I rang my boss, who I hadn't spoken to for 6 months since the podcast, and he said, just put your application in, see how you go, speak about this, speak about that, I'll help you through. And I knew the sacrifice that I'd have to take to know beneficially it would set my career up and to help me get that goal, which it's already showing 3 months in.
Tell us about how you made that decision. Was it literally just going for a walk and pondering and then suddenly come to a realisation, or did you jot down a few things under different categories with things that were important? How did you make that call?
To be honest, it was a lot of family and my partner. My partner Ash, she really said, look, just go for it. What do you got to lose? My family was the same, mum and dad, and what have you got to lose by doing it? I was pretty happy and content with the AFL and my work with the customer service team, stakeholder services team. I loved the team. I had not a bad word to say about it, but I knew that I didn't want to go another year if I didn't have to. And look, I'd applied for multiple roles, and I just thought this club is myself, and this is probably more my knowledge than the family and Ash, because they didn't really know, I suppose, what West United was. But I knew how exciting the project could be, despite how far I was. I knew that I'm looking to probably move out of home in the next sort of 12 months. I end up in the city or thereabouts within the next 12 months. It becomes a half an hour drive. So with all that in mind, I thought, look, long term, I think I could see myself if I can nail the job until I go to the UK, and then bang, I'm over. I've got 4 or 5 years of working in a football club. Obviously, success helps now that on the weekend I can now add that to my resume. That was probably the main thing.
Put in your LinkedIn title.
A-League champion.
Yeah.
A-League winning commercial coordinating.
With like one of those medal emojis or something next to it.
Maybe.
So actually Ruben showed me this today, one of the great LinkedIn headlines, and I know you know what I'm talking about, but Justin Langer, who great friend of the show, he'd be listening, shout out JL, his LinkedIn title is In Transit.
Yeah.
Simple. So simple. Says it all. I liked it. In Transit. Ruben showed me. I thought,
yeah,
it's fantastic.
That's it.
Anyway, another tangent, which we love.
It's okay. We love tangents. Just on the Western United job and the application process and the decision process, once you got to the interview stage, what was important to Western United in terms of the questions that they asked to learn about you?
Personally, it was a lot about their values and how you align with their values. So we have a few values that sort of stick out, like the growth, the togetherness, and those are some of the things I tried to put forward in the application, both from a resume and cover letter perspective. And then when I got to the stage of actually having a conversation with them, other things were probably that knowledge of football. What could you bring from your past experiences, your just general understanding of the landscape. Something I discussed a lot in my first interview was where football is at in Australia, both from a national perspective, but also competition perspective. The Women's World Cup, which I touched on before, how that can have an impact on us, especially with our facility. They're going to base a nation out there in the West. And other things were probably just around how can we utilise our community to become Western United fans. So how can we bring all these new people that are moving out to the West? How can we do that? What are your ideas around that? Another thing they mentioned too was like an Indian strategy. So they've got a big market of Indians coming in and also already housed out in the West. So they sort of had their ears prick up, what my boss did anyway, that I'd done the India study tour in 2019 with Deacon. So that was another thing which I discussed a little bit. But generally it was a lot of just being able to have and hold conversations, because at the end of the day, that's commercial for you. You have to be able to have that relationship with staff members, your partner, execs and the like. And in terms of once I got through that stage, it was a proposal that I had to do. So it was a renewal for Kappa. They gave me a scenario and I had to speak for 20 or 25 minutes based on all this Nielsen data they gave me. And I worked with Ryan on this to put it together.
Genuinely cool, pretty cool interview question, I thought.
And yeah, so I suppose that can help to maybe set you apart. And for me, I hadn't done it before, so I worked my ass off to get it done and get it right. It just became an opportunity to speak on behalf of your data you presented. That also fire questions that are real life. So if I'm speaking to you and Kappa, how can we do this? Can we do this to improve whatever it might be? A lot of problem solving, and that's something I took from my time at the AFL and other jobs too. So that was the main things within the interview.
Was there any question in particular that tripped you up?
There was one that was mentioned in the second interview, and it was probably the most challenging, and that was, tell me a time when your values were challenged. And I've been told that they use that in every interview with West United. So it's obviously something they value in terms of how can you answer that question. And I had to think about it, and my answer was when I got the sack, I basically made it redundant at my job at the gym in Officer. So we had new owners come in. I went on holiday with the guys to Chicago for my sport marketing conference in 2019. I thought I'd come back and everything would be fine. Weeks before I left, I'd train them up because they'd just come in. I'd show them the ropes because I was basically the lead at the store. And I came back and they're like, yeah, we don't need you anymore. See you later. And for me, that was a mix of emotions, and my values and how you treat someone is obviously that was far from it. So that was my answer to it. And basically from there, I mentioned my story of how I travelled to Fitzroy to work in another Plus Fitness, and I'd do 4-hour shifts and drive and commute home, hour and a half there, hour and a half back, 2 or 3 times a week. And I suppose it just spoke to my resilience and how this travel to Western United and to Essendon isn't going to be a problem when I've done this before. Yeah. And then ultimately that led to working at Endeavour Hills and Clyde North, where I sort of amplified my role and learnt a lot more, which I'd spoken to you about, Rubes, before I got the AFL job. So that was probably the toughest question, and maybe a good one for anyone to note down in case you do get that thrown at you by anyone.
And even going beyond that, just making sure you've done your own sort of self-check on what do I stand for? Like, what are the things that I value that are going to be a part of who I am? Because I know like loyalty is a massive thing for you that is clear in that answer. And I'm sure Western United would love to see, and something that's going to keep you in good stead for a long, long time to come. But even just knowing that about yourself becomes integral when you're in these situations, and the A-League premiers want to hire you.
It's a bonus.
Yeah, nice. Let's go back to where, you're at the AFL, and you've obviously gone through that process. You mentioned then, working at the gym, you went through all that process. You lost your job, tough times, and then you got to the AFL. What did you learn about that process, going through, an interview process with one of the biggest organisations in Australia? What did you learn going through there?
Well, firstly, I've got to give a massive thanks and a shout to Brent Hubber. Again, it's a networking story that we met in India study tour. I went to Chicago, and he was working at the AFL in the team and said, look, mate, there's a job going. I reckon you'll be an awesome fit for it. I hadn't even been looking for jobs or...
Was he there already?
Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
And he's now what I'd call a very close mate of mine, and I think will be forever. But yeah, he said, look...
And one of our favourite members as well, mate. Yeah, so we mentioned Clayton, we've now mentioned Brands.
And he'd definitely be listening.
Yep.
He'd be listening.
Yeah, Brantos will be listening.
6 a.m. when this comes out, Tuesday morning.
So Brant said, look, there's a role going. I think you'll be a perfect fit. This is sort of what it entitles. I've put your name forward and happy to put your name forward to my boss. I said your skills, and we're very much the same in terms of our personality and who we are. And look, I contemplated that for a long time. I had a good chat to Rubes multiple times, I think, in that week, and to my family and to Ash, my partner. I really didn't know what to do, which sounds ridiculous that they're contemplating the AFL or Plus Fitness in Clyde North.
That whole concept is challenging, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you think about it.
So, but look, the reason why I was contemplating it was because I was starting to get elements of commercial experience at the gym, in terms of I was starting to do little partnership deals and trying to push that more myself. I was basically an assistant manager role. I was working close with the franchisee. We just launched a new gym in Clyde North and sales were going through the roof. I was learning a lot from a business sense and I suppose administration sense. And that was why I thought I can keep learning this commercial stuff potentially. That's why I want to stay. And I'd spoken to Rubes on the phone probably half an hour in the office at the gym. And
were you like, I hope no one hears me right now?
I kind of, or hope no one
hiding in the storeroom.
I hope no one calls the gym and says, hey, can I inquire? Because I'm busy. And look, you were just very open and honest about, just got to go for it. And you've got nothing to lose. You can always find your way out of the AFL, out of that customer service predominantly role, or you can go internal and progress. I continued to weigh it up, and again spoke to my family and to Ash, and I think I just ended up going, what can I lose? An incentive for me was to work with Brant. I was like, this will be awesome to work with him as well. And so I went for it and got pushed all the way through. I interviewed well. I honestly didn't even do any prep for the interview. I rocked up after a day at Box Hill to an internship. I was like, I am interviewed at 3:30. I'll just turn the computer on.
It just flows out now for Nathan.
Yeah, I was just about to say, I'll just go and apply and see what happens.
Because again, I wasn't too fussed. I was like, well, if I don't get it,
whatever.
I'm still happy.
It's a good mentality though.
And honestly, when people message me all the time saying, hey, I've got an interview tomorrow or this afternoon, do you have any advice for me? At that point in time, it's too late to tell them, go and prepare.
Yeah.
So the only thing I can really give them is something that's going to help their mindset. And I always tell them, just pretend you don't want the job. Tell yourself you don't care because you're going to be a lot more relaxed and you're going to be able to deliver the answers much more effectively. And you've been able to live that.
I did it with Western as well. I was like, it's too far. I don't care.
Just stop caring. Stop caring. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, everyone relax.
Yeah. It's easier said than done though. But I think, to be honest, the podcast was also a big thing for me in terms of it allowed me to have conversations without too much stress.
Yeah.
I started to meet people, albeit through a computer, that I'd never met, and they were execs or they were higher up, and you have to learn how to have a conversation with someone. So that probably helped me a lot through a lot of interviews since I started that. End of the day, I got through, and it was the best decision I ever made. Obviously, the perks of walking to AFL House and the like was unreal. Again, that sort of childhood of, bloody hell, this is awesome.
Were you in Docklands most of the time, or did you work from home a bit? Or?
Yeah, we were, but then COVID struck and we all got sent home from May last year, and I never actually went back in the office. So I was in there for about 2 months, I think, which was sad. But I'm actually catching up with the team tomorrow night to go to the footy and grab a couple of drinks, which I wanted to do a proper goodbye, and I never really had the chance. So, I haven't got a bad word to say about the team whatsoever. My boss, Reese, and look, if anyone's looking for work, I know you mentioned the Lockie Cross story that much that I think it's funny.
Tell it again, eh? No, don't.
But look, that's a perfect example of, look, if anyone wants to work, I'm happy to try push you through. And Brant's another one. I'd reach out to Brant because, again, he's in there at the moment. So it was just a perfect platform to learn CRMs, problem solving, admin. And again, you get to see the perks of being at the AFL. And look, you can take that how you want to take it. You can treat it like a customer service role and go, I'm just going to do customer service and get yelled at or whatever. But I mentioned before that I treated it like, how can I be a gun? Yeah. And over off-season last year, I spent a couple of weeks in our UAT platform, which is basically the test platform for the Play HQ. And I just make teams up, I'd make leagues up, and I just become an expert. And everyone was coming to me, and I started delivering webinars to clubs around the whole country. So it's like that in anything in life. You just got to take it as you want it. But I wanted it more than anyone, and I wanted to be a gun at what I did. So
They're the best roles to start because you kind of have nothing to lose because, let's be honest, you're very entry level. You're doing, it's like high impact for little reward at the time, but overall you get to see the whole business and how it all works and how you actually build grassroots sport. So the experience you would have got from that is more than just playing around with Play HQ, you know what I mean? Like you would have learned so much more than just the system. So they're the ideal roles to start. And like you just said, you just got to basically self-discover sort of what the system looks like, and then you basically just build work for yourself and build experience for yourself by getting to go out and present on it. So.
Yeah, and it was nice to give back. Actually, I had some tickets up my sleeve for the granny, and I gave Brant two. So him and his partner went along, and also Tony Costanzo, who was my lead for the webinars, and he brought me on for that. So it was, again, it's nice, and part of me working in sport is that, and I'm sure a lot of us are, it's to give back to people. And I know I offered you guys tickets a few times as well, but
pretty flat I couldn't take.
That's,
I already had grand final tickets.
That's something that makes me happy as well, is being able to do that. So that was nice.
Yeah, thank you for those tickets. It was very nice. We'll definitely come next year.
Yeah, if I could have a few next year, that'd be great. I'll plug in some dates early, Nate. So
Hopefully the fixture's set.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's awesome. For those who don't know what we're talking about with regard to the Lachlan Croft story, go back to episode 176 on how to tap into large networks, and you'll hear all about how Nathan helped Lockie get a job at the AFL. But before there was the Lachlan Croft story, there was the Nathan Perrone story, because Brant was the original beginning of all this when he invited Nathan along to join the team, and Nathan's just passed it on. So
it's just a chain rolling around.
Maybe Brant should get it right now.
Team.
Maybe Brant's story will get it right now.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah, let's switch them.
Yeah. But it's a perfect example of how just jobs kind of go between circles of people because they trust each other. So
the other thing I'll say on that is you hear plenty of stories of people referring, say their mates or friends that they know to roles, and then people thinking, oh, it's a sure thing. And then they rock up to the interview, they don't prepare, they don't put their best foot forward, and they don't get it. So for those listening, this isn't like, it's mates getting each other's jobs. Like you're basically getting someone the opportunity to show what they're made of, and that's what it's about. So, you had to do a lot of work to actually get the role, even, from just getting in front of the interviewer. So it's not.
I think too though. Ride. If it's me and I'm going to Lockie, I know that he has a chance. Whereas I wouldn't just go to someone and go, "There's a job, have a go," when I know they're probably not going to get it.
Yeah.
So you got to be smart about it too, and give the person actual hope that they have a chance to.
Yeah. That's it. Like when you make a warm introduction like that, it's currency. Like you're putting your social capital on the line.
Yeah, that's the other thing
for Lachlan.
Yeah.
So your reputation's at risk if Lachlan turns out to be a dud. And I've been messaged a number of different times. Hey, Ruben, can you introduce me to this person, or can you recommend me for that, or can you give me a referral or something? And half the time I'm like, I don't know you. Like I don't know you well enough for me to stick my neck out and put my social capital on the line for you just yet.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're great, and I'm happy to get to know you, but we're not there just yet. So I think there's a level of expectations that people need to set for themselves before they can expect to receive a warm introduction like that. But in saying that, the best warm introductions aren't asked for. Like, I don't think Lockie asked for an introduction to the AFL. Nah. I don't think you asked for an introduction to the AFL. Like, people want to reward good people. So,
and again, that just stemmed from a conversation we had on the networking night, and you just build a good rapport, and you go, okay, this guy's a good bloke, and you find out more, and go, okay, I'm happy to reward you, I suppose, or to support you. Said the same to Clayton, a couple of hours ago. So, the right people deserve the right things if it's there.
It just comes back to genuine connections with people, like don't force things, like force someone on LinkedIn to give you a referral to someone. It's like, no, like go and get to know people and be genuine and talk about what you actually enjoy and what you want to do, and that is where the genuine connection is going to come through, and they're going to pass your name forward. It's not going to come from basically asking everyone without building that relationship first.
No, that's it. Where do you go next? What's your plans for the future? You've had an incredibly bright last couple of years coming through the back end of uni and into the start of your career. What are the next stages look like for you?
Yeah, it's a good question. For me, I think I just stay the course with Western. I don't see myself moving away anytime soon. I think, again, part of the reason I said before that I wanted to join was the project and being part of something special, both from being a new club, but also to see the stadium come to life. So unless something comes up that's unbelievably hard to say no to, and with my thoughts of being in the UK in a few years' time, I'd like to think I stay there, try to progress if the roles are there to progress to. But look, I'm still fresh. I still don't really know where things will go, or I wouldn't like to be in this role for 5 years in terms of I don't progress internally for 5 years.
Yeah.
And just, sort of stay the same.
So you'd be happy to be in the club for 5 years, but in different roles.
Yeah, I wouldn't like to be a coordinator for 5 years, which I think everyone understands.
Yeah.
I think everybody is fine to say that.
But look, I want to give it time too. So I'd be happy to be a coordinator for a couple of years because at the end of the day, I've had no real commercial experience in a full-time sense until now. So I know how much I can continue to learn within a club that's so small that I can dip my toes into multiple things. We've got a women's team coming on next year, which is a whole kettle of fish. More partners, more learnings, more relationships. So there's so much more I can continue to learn. And then even from a stadium perspective, no one in the country really knows what it's like to work and own your own stadium because it doesn't happen. So that's another thing.
What's the latest? Can you give us the scoop? You heard it first on the SportsGrad podcast.
Well, we're pretty confident that within 12 months' time we'll be in our training facility.
Yeah.
So the training facility will be then the centerpiece for the players and the coaches.
Yeah.
They'll move from the hangar, and I'd say the pre-season for not this year, not the season coming, the one after, will be there, and likely that they'll be playing home games there as well because that'll hold about 6,000 people.
Yeah.
So that year, which would be the 23-24 season, would be out of the training ground. I'd say staff may be still at the hangar. I won't know.
So you're sharing that with Essendon, is that
correct?
What's happening now? Gotcha.
So we moved in there mid-April.
Yeah, okay.
But
I didn't know that.
Football's been there since November.
Wow.
But yeah, back to the...
It's been kept very quiet. I did not know that.
Yeah, I'll come back to that in a sec. But with the stadium, it's probably a year after. So 23, 24, yeah, that's what I said.
Yeah.
Will be a training facility, and the one after that,
24, 25.
It should be all good to go. And the thing is, it's not just a stadium, and that's what our chairman keeps preaching, the exec keep preaching. It's a facility, it's a city, it's a suburb almost. There'll be a training facility, there'll be a stadium, there'll be basketball, there'll be greenery, there'll be shopping centres, there'll be housing. I think they're saying 40 to 50,000 people to go into that area. So if you're in the area, it's hard to not want to support a club that's at your doorstep, regardless if you're for football or not. So the long term, and yes, I take it on board that I'm now part of the club that didn't deliver a stadium, and we all own that.
But it wasn't promised from the get-go, wasn't it? It was.
So with the bid, it was.
I thought it was in the years coming it would start.
It was promised that within, I think, 2 years it was going to be ready.
Right. I mean, there have been some other factors at play.
Yes, I know with COVID and everything.
Small pandemic in the way.
Yeah. COVID is something probably forget, and people still just go, "Oh, where's your stadium? Where's your stadium?"
Yeah.
And even with us winning on the weekend, people are still going to 2 seconds later go, "Where's your stadium?" And look, I'll be honest, I was one of those people early doors because I wanted Team 11 to come in, which was going to be in Dandenong, which was out southeast where I live. And like the people of the West now, I would have got around the club and got into the A-League because it was at my doorstep. So if you're in the West now, it makes complete and utter sense to go for West United. Obviously, success is going to breed some more fans too. But look, I now own it, and it saddens me that we're still not there and we're still a fair way off. But the fact that the club is all bought into, we realise and we acknowledge that the stadium's not there. We acknowledge that we're behind schedule. But we're still such an ambitious club. We're all on the journey together. Our partners are all on the journey together. They're invested for the long term as well. And I know that once it's ready, it'll be hard to match.
Yeah.
So
it sounds incredible. I haven't read a lot about the whole project, but I didn't realize it was of that magnitude, that it was sort of like a precinct and not just a standalone stadium. Like I think that goes into, what happens in the UK and Europe, like the stadium precincts and like training facilities and everything.
US are massive on it.
Yeah, like that doesn't really happen here. We just have like a building and that's
exactly.
it.
I was listening to Jason, our chairman, I think on the Football from A to Z podcast, which Perrone and Archie Thompson run. And he mentioned that I think a lot of the inspiration got taken from Milwaukee Bucks and their facility outside where a lot of the fans base. I'm not sure what it's called, but how it's all sort of together and you can walk around the corner and there's just a stadium.
Wow, that's cool.
So that's, I think, the goal, and that's why I also want to be part of it, to see it come to life.
That'll be epic to see all that happen.
I know how much work experience as well I'll get from being part of it. So that's where I'm at with the future.
You could buy a house out there.
So look, it was not something...
Devote yourself to your craft and your club.
Really immerse yourself, yeah.
It was not something I'd consider until recently. I was like, I'm never going to go west. Like, I have no association with the West. And there was a little piece of me that said, well, when I leave this club, whenever that might be, I'd love to still be around it for the rest of my life and support it and bring the kids and whatever. But that'd be hard if I'm in the East. So, look, I don't know. We'll see.
So you could have like a little investment property as your little badge of contribution to the West.
How's yesterday? We were driving past, where were we? In Moorabbin. Don't ask why. And we drove past a gate and it had Hawthorn Future Facility on it.
Yeah, welcome to the future home of the Hawthorn Football Club in Dingley.
My question for you is: are you going to be shifting out to Dingley? And
absolutely, I'm going to buy a little investment property down in Dingley so that when I want to
just next to the airport,
travel down there and visit, then I've got a place to stay.
You'll fly in on your plane at Moorabbin Airport. That'll get you.
I'll come in the helicopter, land on the Oval.
SportsGrad's paying high.
Yeah, come on.
It.
We're going to need a bit more funding.
I'm going to raise some more money for that.
Back to your point though on the hangar.
Tell me about that.
We football moved in, I think it was November.
Yeah.
So previously they'd been based out of Caroline Springs at George Cross Football Club, Caroline Springs George Cross, and the facility there is great. But end of the day, it's a local community facility that isn't made for an elite club, and my understanding was previously they weren't too the coach wasn't too keen on moving to an AFL facility, anti-AFL, and then John Aloisi has come in happy to move, sees the benefits of it, and from all accounts throughout the club, everyone's loved it. You're in a more professional environment. Obviously now admin has moved there. We used to be in Truganina, just in a random office.
Yeah.
So now we are housed in the middle of the hangar. Bombers are off to the left. Our players are basically downstairs from us. We share with football and admin, so you see the coaches. And then they train out on the Marvel Stadium size ground.
Yeah.
And the Bombers use the MCG size ground, and we sort of just work around it. So the players share the gym together. We've had operational staff that have sort of made us feel welcome and come in. Last week we had reception with Western United scarves and flags, and there was like an LED board, like a TV like this, that said "Good luck, Western United."
Yeah.
So it's not like we're just
infiltrating. You're not coming in just ripping the players apart.
Not by any means. So they've been great.
How's that possible? Like, have they downsized or something? Have they changed the layout of it?
I think they've built a third level, which didn't exist.
Yeah. Okay.
For the most part, from November to April, when this was ready, the football department were working out of a little office off near a function room. The players still had their space, and that was all, hasn't changed. But admin, again, were off-site, so it made that hard. And now we can just, you can walk down a set of stairs and go watch training if you want to, or go interview the players or whatever you need to do.
It is a big hangar. I'll give you that as well. So there's plenty of room.
It's a good facility.
It's huge. We played a couple of practice games out there when I used to play footy that time. And
never told me this.
We used to play practice games on the Marvel size one, and it's an unreal facility. Like, it's so cool. Head out there.
Unreal.
Yeah, it's very open. Which can be good and bad, I suppose, from people spying on us or whatever.
Yeah, there's a few holes in the fence.
Nathan, you've got a job at the AFL. You've now got a job with the A-League Premiers. You are seemingly at like the doorsteps of an incredible career. Are you going to stick around the community? That's what we want to know. We're all about helping getting people jobs in sport, but also helping them progress their career. And you've been our longest standing member. Are you going to stick around?
It's a good question. What are you going to give me?
Don't even question it.
I'll be here for the long term. I've said that to multiple people already, and again I'll bring back to having a chat with Clayton a couple of hours ago. I literally said I'd see myself here for a while, and I think it's interesting when people come to the community what their values are and what they want to get out of it. I'm sure there's people that come in and they go, look, I want to get a job, and then I'll duck out. There'll be people that want a job and they also want to grow as a community, which is probably what I wanted when I came in, but also I'd say the job was the least of a priority. It was more how can we grow as a bunch of 20-year-olds and raise together and help each other out. Who knows if I'll be helping someone get a job or they help me get a job in 20 years. Like, you don't know. And a lot of my also inspiration was to come and to connect with you guys, which has done pretty well so far.
You're on the podcast twice.
Yeah. So, look, I see myself hanging around, and if that means I can help to hire someone when I'm 35 and they're 20, like, fantastic. We really don't know where this could be in 5 to 10 years. But, I just know the benefit of growing together. I love to give back, and I know I'm only 23 and I've been in the industry full-time for sort of 9 months or so with the AFL and Western. But, I even had a chat last night with Alex. I forget his last name because I just met him. Alex Lesur, I think it maybe. Could be wrong. But Alex, I met him at the awards night last night. He'd volunteered with Western, and I then found out he'd done stuff with Phoenix volunteering. He joined the community pretty recently, from my understanding. And I said, look, happy to chat, mate. I know how hard it is to break in. I know how hard it can be to meet the right people or know where to go. So, yeah, if I can help in any way, more than happy to. I think I was thinking today before I came in, when we had a chat last time, I think you guys said you might come back on as the professional.
Yeah.
And I guess you could say I am the professional now because I'm in a full-time role, but I still feel like a kid. That's not really there. And I wouldn't say I have imposter syndrome all the time, but sometimes when I think big picture, I still feel like I'm still a 19, 20-year-old that's going through uni. So, you can back me in to be around, and I enjoy being, you could say an ambassador or part of your story. And, it's all for the benefit of the community and for sport as a whole. And the weekend showed to me, well, it amplified to me how good sport is, and how could you not want to work in this industry when Melbourneans, especially in Australians, we all grow up and it's our life basically, and it's culture. So yeah,
brilliant. Well, that's excellent to hear, and I think excellent for just people in the sports industry to hear that people such as yourself who have got the right values front of mind want to stick around, want to be a part of it, want to create something special, want to help other people live up to that as well, and do their own meaningful thing as well. I touched on the fact that you are our longest standing member. I want to read you a message that you sent to us in September 2020, the 11th of September 2020.
Okay.
This is right before the community existed. I think the podcast had been going for about 3 months at this point in time.
Yep. We
didn't know who you were. And you reached out and said, hey guys, just wanted to get in touch regarding your community group idea. I think it's a brilliant business move, both financially and to enhance your engagement with your growing audience. Personally, I believe it is well worth the investment from a consumer's perspective, as I am paying over $1,000 for units at university when I'm learning so much from this free service, and would love the chance to have this Patreon-like service. Keep up the great work. I'm continuing to benefit from the content and will be a big supporter of this community group. Kind regards, Nathan. And here you are, a year and a half later. So
that's cool.
You're a man of your word.
Frame that, I reckon. That's pool room quality.
Yeah. And sure enough,
full room for the Commons.
Yeah. On the desk. That's like OG SportsGrad. It's quality.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Well, sure enough, we opened up the community and you're the first one to jump in. So
yeah.
it's
never had any doubts. And I've said this to many people, and it reads as well. Value-wise, it's far and above uni. Not saying uni is bad, but in terms of the value you get out of a unit compared to this as a whole, you pay off a unit for this in 4 years or I don't know, whatever it might be. I think it might be high. It might be less now because you've made it a bit more valuable and exclusive. But yeah, like value-wise, it's so far and ahead. Keep doing uni and keep studying because you get a lot of experience out of that, as I saw. But I've said this to, again, multiple people, and last time I was on the podcast, if you're not listening to this or you're not in the community, you're falling behind. So get in it.
Well, I know you mentioned different points of your career over time. Chatting with you around the point in time when you were trying to make the decision about going to the AFL and seeing you kind of get over that hurdle to experience something pretty amazing and that massive organisation filled me with a lot of pride to kind of see you know, lap that up. And then I know for Ryan as well and the work that he did with you to, you know, work on these case studies for the commercial partnerships role. Both of us are just incredibly proud of how far you've come since you first engaged with us. And I said on a presentation the other day, I was talking about the SportsGrad community and how it came together, and I was telling your story. And I told these group of people in the webinar that at the end of the A-League Grand Final, I didn't watch a single minute of the game in the last 5 minutes because I saw you filter down onto the ground and I saw the Western United staff filter down onto the ground, and I could see you just like pumping your arms up, getting the crowd involved, just lapping up the entire atmosphere, and I couldn't stop smiling looking at you thinking, here's a guy who has made such leaps and bounds over the last 2 years to be in this incredible position where he's experiencing, you know, literally a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for many, many people. Not many people win a grand final in any sense. Doesn't matter if you're a player, coach, staff, what have you. And to see you just enjoying yourself and know how much work you put in just filled me with a lot of pride. And, yeah, it's a pleasure to kind of see you continue to grow and be able to hear all about it today as well. So we are, stoked that you're able to join us today, Nathan.
I really appreciate it, mate. I mean, as I said to you in the text message, and I've said it to you guys multiple times, you've had a big impact on my life in the short time we've known each other. I know we'll be very close for a long time into our careers, and I mean, this resource is something that we all wish we had when we started uni. I was lucky to have it on the back end of uni, and obviously happy to continue to push that for years to come. As you said, Saturday night, it gave me time to just reflect, and I think even your message and the post you guys put out as well, it sort of all hit home that I've just come a long way. So this little kid that was hitting a golf ball at like 1-2 years old and kicking a footy, and to now be here, it's a bit surreal. So I'm loving life and trying to soak it all in and take it as it comes, and enjoy it at the same time. So I'd love to give back, and something I've thought about recently, and maybe it's a bit too soon, but seeing like what Belinda Kay does at Deakin, and how she gives back and she contributes to us, and like I'd love to see myself working once a week and helping students of tomorrow in 20, 30 years or whatever it might be, just because I don't know, just a value of mine of being able to give back. And again, if it can help me recruit the next gun, the next me sort of thing.
You are a gun. You're allowed to say that.
I'd love to. So look, thanks again for having me, guys, and always a pleasure.
Awesome, Rubes. Well, we love talking to Nath. And as I said at the start of the episode, he's joined the illustrious group of getting a double episode to their name. That was a genuine great discussion, as it always is when we chat to Nath. But interested to hear what your highlights were. Yeah, no, we love talking to Nath, and I've put the tissues away. We got a bit emotional at the end, but I thought you were going to have a bit of a tear there, but you did well. Yeah, I tried to keep it in. I think he was almost as well. I tried hard to tear him up. Imagine that, the first tears on the SportsGrad podcast. Yeah, hard hitting. We try to be a light and educational podcast, but then sometimes tears hit. Maybe next time. Bring on the tears. The race is on.
Yeah. Well, that kind of leads me to my main takeaway, and that is Nathan's got to where he is today by just being a good person who's done good work and continued to put himself out there, put himself on display, to network with people, to be genuinely curious. And that cycle is going to take him so far into the future. So I think if you're listening to Nathan thinking, how can I get to where he is? Think about who you are first and what values you align to. Think about how hard you're going to work and what you want to work on, and then just keep putting yourself out there so more people know what you can do, and the cycle will continue to grow.
Yeah, absolutely. I loved his point around how much podcasting helped him. And I can really relate to this, like not from so much an interview point of view. Like he said that it really helped with his interviews because he just
rocked up to the AFL.
Just rocked up and whatever. But it really helped him, and I can definitely relate to this because it's just when you're podcasting with someone, it's just having a conversation, and when you've done 181 of them, which is today, you're gonna get pretty used to talking to people. So start a podcast, do it. It'll help you with the interviews, help you talking to people, everything. It's great.
Absolutely. It really just helps you articulate what you're trying to say. And for anyone who wants to see me make a fool of myself, go onto YouTube and go back to the very first SportsGrad interviews back in 2018, 2017. And they're not quite as polished as they are today.
Yeah. I love how you just said articulate, and I reckon I've been shocking at articulating my words today. But that's okay. Quick one. Other episodes that kind of relate to Nathan and this space, are there any suggestions you've got for those listening in?
Well, Nathan's been on before, so I'd definitely go back and listen to the first time he was on.
Yeah.
I might do that as well, actually, because I'd be interested to hear.
It's a different perspective.
Yeah.
I think that's quite cool.
So he came on in, May last year, which was, I think it was episode 81 he would have been on.
Good.
And then for those who want to hear more about, sponsorship in general, tune into Lena Staropoli. She's a sponsorship manager at Cricket Australia who's had some really good international experience, and she is episode 24.
Yeah.
If you also want to hear about someone who's made an incredible leap or someone who's made the most of university to end up in a really cool job, go listen to Abby McNish. Now, she's moved on, but at the time we talked to her about how she made the jump from university to the Carlton Football Club, and she was the most involved person at Deakin University I've ever met. So if you want to listen to her, I reckon she is...
This is going to test
63. She's in the 60s.
We'll be checking that out.
She's in the 60s. I know that much.
We won't edit this out. I want you to be proven wrong if this is wrong.
I reckon it's 63. I want to look it up now.
All right. Well, while you look that up, a quick last message from us. Obviously, connect with us on LinkedIn. Plus, be sure to jump into the SportsGrad community. We'd love to chat with you on there. Head to our website, sportsgrad.com.au/community to join.
It's 63.
It is 63. Well done. I was expecting you to come in and tell me that after I'd finished the last week, but that is totally
forget
fine.
that.
Well done.
More important things.
There's something up with you and podcast numbers, so you're elite, mate. Well done. But head to our show notes for all that information. Also, if you love the show, we would love for you to rate the show 5 stars, review it, subscribe, do whatever you need to do. You can do that wherever you listen to your podcast. So jump on board. We'd love to get some love from you guys as well. So well done to you on that call.
Yeah, sorry I interrupted you.
No, that's totally fine. I was just about at the end, so I think the listeners got what they needed to hear. So
perfect.
Anyway, alrighty, we better get out of here. It's getting silly. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.